Before we get into the monologue and just announcing everything going on with this vinyl collection part, guys, it came today. The Windeer box set. Oh, it's so amazing. Welcome back to another installment within my vinyl collection. This is now part 12 we are on. And yeah, sorry that I haven't done a video in a whole week. As you guys would probably guess, I'm going to banter on about work hard, I'm tired. Usually when it comes to why I discussed why I have been kind of absent for the whole week. But another thing too I wanted to talk about was a lot of people have been wondering like how many parts it's going to take until we finally get done showing everything. And from my estimate, this is again just from what I've gathered so far, it seems like each square holds up to at least 3 parts. And from all the squares I've counted that are filled up, we're talking about right now roughly, and this is if I weren't to buy anything for my collection, what I doubt's going to happen, it's probably going to be around 48 parts until we're done with this whole series. So we're not even a quarter of the way done. But yeah, other than that, what's playing in the background is something I got for myself for my birthday. And that would be Abigor with Invoke the Dark Age. This was a much needed present for myself. I didn't care how much I spent. I mean, I needed it after the overtime I've been doing, but fuck. Come on, guys. You know, I think it's almost illegal in some degree to claim that you're a black metal fan and not enjoy Abigor. Finally, with all that out of the way, now we can continue on back with my vinyl collection. In the previous part, we got like halfway through my Deathspell Omega collection, so in this part we're going to finish the other half. We started off with Deathspell Omega, Paracletus. Oh my god. Easily one of the greatest black metal albums I've ever heard. It's artistic yet powerful. They got their own sound going for them, and this album is just like their magnum opus. I really can't picture Deathspell Omega topping this album. That I believe, if memory serves me right, I had this like in my top 5 of all-time favorite black metal albums, and it's going to stay there. Like, it's just so artistic and powerful. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. That I know in my description I said it's equivalent to capturing lightning within a bottle and riding off the power for 40 minutes with it, and that's like just the perfect explanation for this album. It's again just so many bands, so many bands try to capture what Deathspell Omega did with Paracletus, and just countless amounts fail so much at it. It's a must listen, a must know if you're a black metal fan. That I feel like it's one of the greatest avant-garde black metal albums ever. But finally, with all that out of the way, because I dick rode that really fucking hard to the point that my asshole just basically collapsed on itself. As for the layout and packaging, I know you can still get this through a Norma Evangelium. So you have artwork right here, backside with the track listings, comes on a gatefold, printed in her sleeve but pretty basic, just with the band logo, nothing on the other side, and is on plain black vinyl, which I'm pretty sure every Deathspell Omega is like this really when it comes to their releases. Also does come with a big ass booklet, as I call it, with just lyrics and artwork to go along with everything. I mean, you get the gist of it. Following that, we have the two-way split between Deathspell Omega and Sylvester. Surprisingly, I actually prefer the Sylvester side to the Deathspell Omega side. I guess the best way to describe Sylvester is think of the combination between Deathspell Omega and Catharsis. Like, it blends the two bands like spot on so well. But it sucks that Sylvester really hasn't done much within their discography. Besides, I think a demo, one full length, and this split right here, they've done next to nothing, and it's a damn bummer. But the Deathspell Omega side only has one song, which is Chaining the Catchun, which it's just one long, drawn-out, like 15-plus minute track that just, I don't know, there's some parts that are pretty exciting and exhilarating and others that drag out too much, whereas the Sylvester side has 3 individual tracks where you get more of that pulverizing sound with them, and it's a bit more consistent. But either way, this is still a great split overall, and again, since it's put out through Norma Evangelium di Voli, I'm pretty sure they've still got loads of copies still available on their distro. As for the layout and packaging, you have artwork, backside, comes on a gatefold. Once again, another standard plain black vinyl with a printed inner sleeve. Both sides have the same artwork. Then I have the Deathspell Omega EP, that being Drought. Now, I know there's always like this big concept when it comes to Deathspell Omega releases, especially since they are so lyrically driven, especially when you read upon the lyrics with any of their releases. It's like this big giant monologue composed of so many different verses and metaphors and philosophical shit, that whereas other bands have more of like choruses or just schizophrenic types of like, you know, lyrics, and you kind of just make it out to, you know, some generic thing about Satanism and war and violence, blah fucking blah. Deathspell Omega always has more of a concept, and it feels like trying to figure out like a jigsaw puzzle as to exactly what everything means. And from all the kind of like conversations I've had with people, supposedly the first 3 Deathspell Omega albums, when they changed to the more like avant-garde stuff, that being C Monumentum, Fast Ite, and Paracletus, all had a common theme and concept about, you know, the human race, mankind, the relationship with church and God, and just all, you know, more philosophical stuff. Whereas Drought right here is more like an epilogue to that trilogy of the 3 full lengths that they did. So it kind of feels like this unwritten closed chapter to all of it, I guess, in some type of way, if you're really interested about all the concept when it comes to Deathspell Omega. Other than that, I would honestly say if you want to get into the avant-garde stuff with this band, this is honestly like the best place to start next to Paracletus. Because the track on here, Abrasive Swirling Murk, if there's ever a track that perfectly describes Deathspell Omega with a song title, it's that one. So this just seems so chaotic and way more hard-hitting compared to the full lengths, where they kind of deviate more with the full lengths and be a bit more abstract with it, as this just feels more on the offense with this EP. Still, it's stellar stuff because it's fucking Deathspell Omega. But yeah, finally got a copy about a handful of months ago, because finally a US distro got copies of this, because I think it's Osmos and again Norma Evangelium Diaboli that carry copies, but shipping and handling is like, you know, 20 plus bucks, so that's what's always held me back getting this release. But anyway, yeah, artwork, backside, like always, comes on a standard black vinyl with a printed inner sleeve of the band logo on one side and lyrics on the other. Sorry about that, guys. I feel like in the last record I just showed, I almost lost my voice right there, because before making this video I went for a jog and I ate like a shit ton of peanut butter and crackers, so I feel like my throat's kind of like caving in on myself right now. But anyway, who cares about my health? Because more importantly is even more Deathspell Omega. Next up is Deathspell Omega once again with the Synarchy of Molten Bones. I can say with confidence that personally this is my least favorite release Deathspell Omega has done. Because with every release, you know, the stripped down black metal era from the early 2000s to the, you know, crazy, spiraling out of control avant-garde approach that they've done nowadays, this album just feels so directionless. I know it's not directionless, I don't know if that's a word, but like, it just doesn't feel like it has like a sense of like a direction that like leads to something. It's kind of just like, hey, there's noise, and it's just like, it's all crazy, and then it just kind of ends. Like, they're just, I don't know, it just kind of feels like they're like, with this album, just whatever, let's do an album. But it feels more like an EP compiled of just like side B riffs. Another thing too, I don't really care for it all that much, is the production value isn't as sharp as it could be, and it just feels kind of stale. Like, I don't know, there's just something about this album that just doesn't click with me, that I find myself always putting this off to the side whenever I'm in the mood for Deathspell Omega. And it's more just kind of like a collection piece that just is in the shelves for me. I don't know, maybe I gotta give it like another chance, but again, when I'm in the mood for Deathspell Omega, it's always, this is kind of like at the far edge of the corner for me. But yeah, put out through Norma Evangelium Diaboli, so if you want it, get it there. Anyway, you got artwork, which looks pretty rad. Backside with track listings, only 4 tracks on this one. Like always, standard black vinyl, but it comes with a one-sided sheet with lyrics, and the other side is just basically black with the label logo at the bottom. Finishing up now with the Deathspell Omega portion within my collection. Next up is Deathspell Omega again, with the compilation only compiled of 2 tracks, that being Diabolus Abscondictus and Mass Graves Ascetics. 2 tracks that clock in together around a little over half an hour long, so both tracks are roughly 15 plus minutes in length. And again, even though it's only 2 tracks, it feels like it's compiled of 6 tracks, because each track has like the ups and downs of slow and fast, kind of like some interlude parts within the tracks to give off like that abstract types of moments within Deathspell Omega. And personally for me, the Mass Grave Aesthetic track, the closing track, is the better of the 2 because it just feels a bit more consistent, whereas Diabolus Abscondictus, it just kind of deviates a little too much for my liking. But again, I got this for, to be a collector's scum, along with the fact that this was around the time I was going to Armageddon like on a weekly basis, and they would always have like another Deathspell Omega release to add within the collection, so that's the main reason why I got it. Anyway, as for the layout, you got artwork, backside. Comes with an A3 poster of the artwork, as you would guess, on a standard black vinyl, but comes with a printed inner sheet, so you have lyrics on one side and just artwork on the other. Finally, finishing up the Deathspell Omega portion is going to be the Furnaces of Palagenasia. Yep, album released back in 2018. That I would say, out of everything within the Deathspell Omega catalog, this is the most death metal friendly, I feel like. It doesn't have as many black metal moments, and they feel like more of like that hybrid blend of black metal and death metal, but still carrying that technical, crazy, vortex-like riffs on here. Tracks on here like Splinters from Your Mother's Spine is a perfect representation of that. But my favorite track has always been Absolutus Regeneration. I feel like that has more of like a death metal feel that just feels a bit more refreshing, because I'm just so used to Deathspell Omega being that whole like weird, trippy, crazy black metal avant-garde approach, and having more of a death metal aspect gives this a bit more of a standout feature within their catalog. Again, put up through Norma Evangelion Diaboli, so it's going to be really easy to find there. So anyway, as for the layout and packaging, I would say this is kind of like the most bare bones, because out of everything I've shown that is Deathspell Omega with their vinyl releases, they always seem to go above and beyond with it being on a gatefold, 180 gram vinyl, maybe a poster printed in our sleeves. This just feels a bit more, I don't want to say cheapened as an insult, but just, again, more just stripped down and bare bones. So you have artwork, backside with track listings, like everything else, on a standard black vinyl, but it comes with this little card right here with the logo on the other side of the label, and a sheet of lyrics, so one side and the other side. Proceeding on next, finally to a different band. Next up is Demilich with their debut full-length Nespithe, that has basically now at this point reached legendary status within the whole Finnish death metal realm. That the Finnish death metal scene definitely has quite the heavy hitters, stuff like Convulse and Demigod, and the list just goes on and on. But something about Demilich's Nespithe seems like such the oddball, and typically I wouldn't like this stuff, as it's kind of like the whole technical, experimental death metal approach that is basically like proto-Gorguts is what this album basically is. And I don't know, it's just something about this release I just really like a lot. And it's not the, frog vocals that people meme to death with this album. It's just got like this very abstract atmosphere, something that just feels so out of the ordinary for like 90s death metal standards, that just resonates with me so much. I don't know what it is, because again, I just typically don't care for this style, yet Nespithe made it work so fucking well. And then there's the track on here that, again, has like probably the most memorable riff for me. I mean, this album has riffs galore, but the track on here, and these song titles are ridiculous, is The 16th six-toothed son of 14-4 regional dimensions. Yeah, it's all one song title. That song easily has my personal favorite riff and just overall track in general within this album. But yeah, thankfully now Savart has been keeping this in print, so if you want to get this album, which used to be like such a pain in the ass to do, because originally, I think it was like a decade ago or some time around that time in the early 2010s, they did a box set for this release along with the demos, and that was like, impossible to get. But thankfully Savart has been doing different represses for it, so if you want this legendary finished death metal album, go to Savart. They'll always keep it in print. But anyway, as for the layout and packaging, you have artwork right here, which I'm glad to see that they kept it the same all these decades later. Backside with the track listings. Comes with a lyric sheet with artwork on each side. And my vinyl edition comes on semi-translucent red vinyl, which looks really cool with the center label. Oh boy! Next up is quite possibly one of the craziest albums I have within my collection, and that would be Dendritic Arbor with their 2016 full-length Romantic Love. This is a combination of black metal, grindcore, and power electronics done in the most chaotic, harshest, and just batshit insane ways possible. That it's just pure, unadulterated energy. Like, it's just so fucking insane what this album has, and it's just in the grooves of this vinyl. Like, it is just pure energy. I can't stress that enough. And I feel like if you're an adrenaline junkie that just likes balls to the wall extreme music, you'll love this. And it's a bummer that no one has ever talked about this band from what I've seen. I think another way to describe this band is think of Neltro. And if you guys don't know Neltro, I would say out of all the extreme metal bands I've ever heard, Neltro is hands fucking down the most fucking chaotic band I've ever seen, that I feel like I have to cuss to just truly emphasize just how fucking insane Neltro is on how they sound with any of their releases. That I was lucky enough, I guess you could say, to catch them live, and it's the only band I've ever seen live that they were playing so insanely harsh and loud that I had to physically cover my ears because it was painful, but it was just like an experience that I can't explain. They are just in a whole other realm of extreme, alright? And I tell you guys that about Neltro because Dendritic Arbor is basically like the autistic cousin of Neltro, and I don't mean that in an insulting way. Like, they take that sound and just make it a smidge more artistic with their power electronic approach. But again, I know I'm repeating myself, I can't emphasize it enough. If you just like pure unadulterated energy, which is batshit insane extreme metal, you need to listen to this. But yeah, other than that, hopefully this band does new material soon, because this is their latest full length from 2016 and they haven't done anything since. So anyway, you have, for the layout, the artwork, which I have no fucking clue what that's supposed to be. Backside with the track listings. From what it says on their Bandcamp, all the LPs are in random colors. Mine came on like this baby vomit, I guess, looking color. And it says it's limited to 100 copies. Up next is one of my favorite albums from the previous year, and what I stated as the best black metal album of 2020, and that would be Diogen, The Endless Black Shadows of Abyss. If memory serves me right, I had this third in my albums of the year for 2020, and honestly, it still holds up to this day. I know it's only been like, what, 5 months or 4 months or whatever since I did that video, but still, this album is awesome because it's like raw black metal mixed with keyboards, and I know that's nothing groundbreaking, and on paper that sounds like a terrible idea. You're going to have raw, dissonant black metal with gleamy, glossy keyboards. Like, how does that make any sense? Like, it just seems like two different worlds that aren't meant to be together. Yet Diogen just knocked it out of the park with the execution on here, because while the raw black metal segments are pretty typical, you know, tremolo pick guitars and shrieks, and kind of blends in with the rest of the crowd. The keyboard works on here are just absolutely incredible because it has like a, dare I say it, like a neoclassical symphonic edge to it that just makes raw black metal go in a completely different direction that I'm just personally not used to hearing. Like, it just feels like a more, I guess, you know, raw, dissonant version of like Emperor to some degree, and I think that's like the best way to describe this album. And the biggest shocker for me is that this is a band from the United States. Like, I think of like symphonic black metal, a lot of the best stuff comes from like the European countries, and I don't really think of my country, regardless of what state it is, having really anything all that special when it comes to black metal like this. But I believe they're from Ohio, and that was like the biggest surprise to me. So Godspeed to this band. I hope they follow up with this or continue on, because this is one hell of a debut right here by these guys, and they won me over hard with it. But yeah, sadly this is long gone out of print, so hopefully maybe Black Gangrene or some distro will do a repress soon, because it's definitely a black metal release that needs to be heard. But anyway, for the layout and packaging, you got the stereotypical white and black artwork with the border around it. But I do like the fact that they kind of became like black metal ninjas, how they're dressed up. Backside with the band logo, put up through again, Black Gangrene. Comes on a standard black vinyl, obviously, but it does come with an insert sheet with a band photo, again, logo of the band right there. And the other side just has track listings. Then I have the debut full length by Departure, Chandelier, Antichrist, Rise to Power. Man, when this album was originally released back in 2019, so many people were freaking out about this album. I remember just all the hype and just a praise this album got, that it was so impossible to get a vinyl copy of this in its original release. And I don't know, I think I bought into it at first because it has members of Ashpool and Akitsa, which, just that description alone, I was like, I want this album. Along with the fact, too, that musically, honestly, it's just the sounds of Akitsa, the hybrid blend of black metal and punk, just layered with keyboards. That's the best way to describe Departure, Chandelier. And I get it, the keyboards make this really melodic, but I don't know, after giving this now like at least a good, half a dozen spins, honestly, it's just a bit above okay to me. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of like an album that I'm just like, yeah, it's alright, and that's all I can really say about it. Because, I mean, the track on here, Forever Faithful to the Emperor, I think is the track that won over a lot of people. And yeah, it's a really good track, but again, there's really not much else I can say about it. And maybe the reason why I even like it to any degree is that it just reminds me so much of Akitsa. But again, just heavily layered with keyboards is the best way to describe Departure, Chandelier. But anyway, other than that, you've probably seen so many people talk about it. So you got the layout, the artwork, backside of the track listings, put out through Nuclear War now, so I'm pretty sure they still have copies readily available there. Comes on a gatefold. I just have the standard black vinyl, but it does come with an A2 poster of one of the band members. Alrighty, all that's left now is just by one band, and this is the only band I can say within my collection that I've enjoyed basically ever since I started breathing, honestly, ever since I was an infant, and that would be Depeche Mode. This is a bootleg of their early demos that I got at, again, Armageddon years ago. And I'm surprised Armageddon gets copies like this, especially they get bootlegs for some way or how, I don't know. But either way, the fact that it's Depeche Mode and its early demos sold me on it alone, plus it was only, $10 I think at the time. And this is weird to listen to because it's kind of just like the demo takes, honestly, of the tracks that I've been, in love with ever since I was a child. Tracks on here like Enjoy the Silence, Told You So, Walking in My Shoes, Love in Itself, Surrender, Lie to Me, Clean, to hear all these tracks that I've heard countless times with the studio takes, with the demo takes, it's just so odd to me, and it's not something that I really like getting familiar with, but the fact that it's Depeche Mode just makes me like it by default. I know that's weird, but that's just something with Depeche Mode. They have a very, very, very special place in my heart that, you know, it could be just these raw, unedited, harsh demo takes, and I'll still love it. But, yeah, other than that, I mean, it's on plain black vinyl, nothing really to showcase there, and again, it's a bootleg, so, I mean, you know, it's a cheap bootleg. What else do I need to tell you? Then I have their fourth full length, that being Depeche Mode, Some Great Reward. Yeah, I'm missing the previous 3 full lengths, which again, it's Depeche Mode. These are not albums that are hard to find. I can go to basically any record store and come across them, so I'm in no rush, but at some point I will get them. But Some Great Reward, I would say within their discography at the time, because, the first 5 years of Depeche Mode, they were really active quite a bit. I mean, this was, again, released in, 19... shit, it doesn't say. I know it's the 80s, and it's only their 4th full length, but within the first 5 years, they released, like, 5 studio full lengths. Like, they were really busy. And I would say Some Great Reward has more of a poppy-ish sound to it compared to the other full lengths that had more of like the synthesizers utilized and somewhat of like a minor industrial edge to it in some degree. Only the first 3 I would say have that, but Some Great Reward is definitely more radio friendly from the previous 3. Tracks on here that I've always enjoyed: Lie to Me is my personal favorite song. Then you got People Are People, Master and Servants, another great track, Blasphemous Rumors, Stories of Old, just overall stellar stuff because it's fucking Depeche Mode. What else do I need to tell you? But anyway, as for the layout and packaging, you have artwork, backside. Comes on a gatefold with notes of each member. Standard plain black vinyl, but it comes with a printed inner sheet of just artwork, I guess, and lyrics on the other side. Continuing on with even more Depeche Mode, next up is their 5th full-length, Black Celebration. I can easily say that this is their most underrated within their catalogs. I feel like so many people look at this as, you know, the black sheep, it's the oddball, it's where they went a bit more experimental with their usage on the synthesizers, that it doesn't feel as radio friendly or as poppy and lush and kind of like that whole like heartbreak, feel good type of sound that they would do with every other release that they've done. This has always been, you know, the black sheep for them. And I feel like because of it, I've come to admire it a lot more within their discography, just for the whole artistic value. And I don't know, there's just something about it, I guess, because of its whole darker vibe, as you can just tell from the artwork and album title, that, I don't know, at first when I was a kid, when I discovered this, I just felt so confused, because I just always know Depeche Mode for their other releases, which we'll talk about, and the obvious one, which we'll talk about real soon. And hearing them be kind of like all hope, like so drained of hope, it just felt weird. And there's songs on this album about murder and like betrayal and lying that's just like, I'm just not used to hearing Depeche Mode sounding this dark in the whole tone and aspect of their album. So yeah, it's definitely the oddball for them. But again, still worthy of checking out. Tracks on here are like A Question of Lust, Sometimes, It Doesn't Matter Too, and Here in This House are stellar tracks. But yeah, as for the packaging and layout, you have artwork, backside, comes on a gatefold, plain black vinyl, but printed inner sleeve with lyrics on each side. Up next is Depeche Mode again with Music for the Masses. Definitely the whole, you know, funds and popularity that they were getting, definitely you can tell that the production value on this album is just beefed up to that whole professional level tenfold. That's meant for a mainstream audience, because tracks on here like The Things You Said, Strange Love, which is my personal favorite song on here, and Behind the Wheel just definitely have more of like that overblown, you know, chorus type of effect that makes people want to sing along with this album. And it's definitely meant, as you can tell just from, you know, the album title again, for a bigger audience, and they really hit the nail on the head with this album. I mean, again, it's Depeche Mode. So other than that, for the label and packaging, you have artwork. Backside comes on a gatefold, like basically everything else within this part. It's on a standard black vinyl with a printed inner sleeve with thank you notes on one side and artwork on the other. And final record to show within this part just happens to be the greatest album ever made, in my personal view. And that would be Depeche Mode, Violator. Oh my god. Guys, this is my all-time favorite album, and I know that's weird to hear because you're expecting me to say that to Summoning's Meanest Morgul. Let me make this clear. I've always said that Summoning's Meanest Morgul is my favorite album in the context of metal. Yes, when it comes to black metal and just metal as a whole, Summoning's Meanest Morgul will always be my favorite. But if we're talking about music, regardless of genre, as a whole, it's Depeche Mode's Violator. I adore this album. I've loved this album since I was 3 years old, through my, you know, adolescence, when I was an infant, when I went to elementary school, when I went to middle school, when I went to high school, when I got out of high school, and as I am now as an adult, I have always adored this album to just such an existential degree that it's always going to be my favorite, because it's the only album I've enjoyed basically my whole life. That, yeah, spoiler alert, I know I talked about in the previous part, if I ever did a top 50 favorite albums of all times list, big fucking spoiler alert, you best expect it, this is going to be my #1 spot. Yes, I'm going to put it over Summoning's Meanest Morgul, you best fucking believe that, because these songs on here are just timeless to me. Of course, Enjoy the Silence. I mean, everyone should know that song, alright? If you are watching this video and you don't know that song, get the fuck off this video and listen to it. Like, what are you doing with your life? Then just, like, this whole album is basically more like a best of compilation than a full length, because you got Personal Jesus, Waiting for the Night, again, Enjoy the Silence, Policy of Truth, Blue Dress, Clean, which is just such an elegant, gorgeous, and just blissful way that Mark describes about getting clean off of drugs. Like, such a gorgeous track. Just, again, overall, this is just synth pop in the greatest possible way you can make synth pop, and just music as a whole. Alright, it's always going to be my all-time favorite album, no matter what. But yeah, you guys should all know it. It's Depeche Mode, and this is kind of like their magnum opus for a lot of people. So again, you got the iconic artwork. Backside comes on a gatefold, like always on a standard black vinyl, but printed in a sleeve of the artwork and lyrics on the other side. Alright, that'll do it for this vinyl collection part. Like always, links will be provided to everything I've talked about in the description below. And yeah, that is that. So like always, guys, make sure you guys drink plenty of water to stay hydrated, and have a great day.